All right, we just took a look at the payment function that allows us to find out the monthly payment based off of a present amount or the principal amount, the term, the number of payments, and the interest rate. And that's great. Taking out a loan, you can find out what you're going to be paying monthly. Now let's take a look at what you can get through an investment. If I set up an initial amount that I have to invest, I've got an average interest rate that I anticipate making throughout the years over a set number of years. I've got the term, how long my investment's going to grow for. It's going to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. And I can find out what I may end up with at the end of that time. This is called the future value function, or FV. Let's take a look. So I've moved over to the next worksheet. I'm on the investment calculator worksheet, and it's got a few little fields for us. We need to set up the initial amount that we have. So imagine I'm just bright-eyed, bushy-tail out of college. I got my first job, and I've got a little bit of money that I can now start to invest, start as my initial amount. Then every month, I'm going to contribute additional money towards that investment. So first off, got my initial amount. Let's say I got $100. That's what I got. I'm going to take that $100, then I'm going to throw it at the market, right? Throw it into a 401k, or I'm going to throw it into a high yield savings account or a CD or wherever I'm going to invest this at. So I've got the initial 100. Now, depending on where you're placing this money, interest rates are going to fluctuate, right? If I throw it into the stock market, they may range from a high value, 10 plus, they may go down to a very low value. Okay, so that's going to be kind of all over the place. But an average return might be something around 7, 8, 9% over the lifetime of your investment. If you invest for 20, 30, 40 years, we can expect an average return of roughly 7%. So let's stick with that just as our example here. We get to set up the term, how long this is going to last. How long is our investment going to go for? Right now I got 60 months in there. But let's say I'm going to do it for the next 20 years. So I believe that's 240 months. Let's do some quick math here. 240 divided by 12, 20 years. All right. So for the next 240 months, right, 20 years, my investment is going to go through. Starting with $100, I expect roughly a 7% return for the next 240 months. Now, every month, I want to continue to contribute money to the investment. So let's say every month I'm going to put $100 in there. Okay. So now here comes the magic. I can currently see I got a little formula down here that tells me that if that's all I do right there, that's it. I've contributed $24,100. That's just me with my initial amount, adding $100 every month for the next 240 months. I've got roughly $24,000. Now, but I'm putting it into an account that should be getting interest on top of my money. So here's the magic. Inside of cell D13, I'm going to create a function utilizing the FV function. So I'll say equals. I'm going to use a minus sign next because remember it's going to come out negative just like the payment. So I'll do the negative sign. I'll do FV open parentheses. So here's our FV, or future value function. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that it wants from us. We're going to use 4 of them. So the first thing it wants to know is the rate. So I'll grab D7. I'll divide that by 12, comma. Wants to know the number of payments. We got our 240 or 20 years later, comma. Wants to know the payment, how much you're going to make each month. That's going to be our additional $100. And then comma, what's our present value? In this case, we start out with $100. I'm going to close that parentheses. I'll hit my enter key, and there we go. So starting out with $100 at a expected 7% return for the next 240 months, if I continue to add $100 every month, we will end up with $52,496 at the end of that 20 years. Now, we can see through the couple of quick calculations here this is what we contributed over those 20 years, $100 initially, $100 every month, roughly $24,000. But then with the 7% return over those 240 months, we can expect somewhere around $28,000 in interest on top of our money for a grand total of roughly $52,000. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. The next 20 years. Well, what if I did this for longer? Let's see, we got 20 years inside there. What if I do it for 25 years? So 240 is 20. We add 5 more years to that. 60 months is 5 years. So the 300, right? 25 years. Whoop. All right, what just happened there? We just went up. Was that roughly $30,000? We're now contributing $30,100 initially with 100, every month putting $100 additional. We've now racked up $51,000 in interest and contributed roughly $30,000 for 25 years. What if I go 30 years? Right? So this is going to be 360. I'll hit my enter key. Ooh, look at that. This is just initial $100 every month for the next 360 months. That's 30 years, right? What's the standard age range for working, right? If I start working in my 20s somewhere, let's say I start working full-time job at 24. 30 years later, we've got 24, 34, 44, 54, 64. No, that's 40 years, 30 years. 34, 20, 44, 54. So 54 years old, if I started this at 24 years, I would now have $122,808 roughly with these numbers right here. Okay, that's pretty cool. Well, let's see. What did I say? That was 54. What if I go for 10 more years? So retire at 64. Well, let's see. That would be 420, 480, right? 480. Now I've got $264, $112. Let's just make sure my math is correct here. 480 divided by 12, 40 years. So if I do this consistently for 40 years, that's what my numbers could potentially look like. I've contributed just over $48,000 to this prize, but I've amassed a load in interest. And we hear a term, when you get into investing, we hear a term called compounding interest. And that's what's happening here. Okay? The longer our money can sit there and the more years that go by, we're going to continue to add to it, but then build interest. And then that interest each year will add additional money through the interest, compounding that interest every time. Our money, making money, making money, making money. Okay? Pretty cool. And that's just $100 every month for the next 480 months. That's a long time, 40 years. All right. Now, what if I bump that up a little bit? What if I say, okay, I started out with 100, right? But every raise that I get throughout my career, I'm going to add a little bit more to it. So let's say instead of $100, I do $200 every month for the next 480 months. Now I've got just over $500,000, right? Unfortunately for me, I joined the game late. At 24 years old, I was still picking my nose trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Right? I wasn't contributing. I wish I was, right? And I wish I had created it or made it a habit. Just invest it, forget about it. And over $500,000 4 years later. And you've contributed just under $100,000. But it's the interest, that compounding interest, right, over the years, that's really going to get to you. Okay? Can only imagine if you jump that number up even higher every month, right? What if I do $300? What if I do $400, right? We want to make sure we can afford whatever it is that we're investing in there, but we're going to continue to increase that amount. So try this out. Jump into the investment calculator worksheet and drop in some numbers. Use that FV function to find out what your future investment will look like.